Hello, everybody. I'm Karla Akins with the Writing Cafe, and I'm so glad that you stopped by to share a cup of tea with us because I am so excited to introduce to you a former bookstore turned author, young woman named Kate Breslin. And she is hailing tonight from the Pacific Northwest. She's a writer of travel articles and award-winning poetry. And the last time I saw her in person, I do believe she wasn't even published yet. And now she is a best-selling award-winning author. And she has a new book coming out, and we're going to get to learn about that. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much, Karla, for having me on the show. This is wonderful.
Oh, it's so awesome to get to see you. And it looks to me like you are on the Pacific coast, because over here on the East Coast in Florida, the sun's going down. You still have the sun going.
That's
still have
right.
the sun up
You
where
bet.
you are.
Yeah, 3-hour difference, right?
Oh, yeah. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? So tell me what you've been up to lately. What is your latest book? And then we'll go into the writing life.
Okay, well, my very latest published novel right now is As Dawn Breaks, and here's a picture of it here, if you can see it.
Oh, yes. Well, I'll put some. I'll
yeah,
put some graphics up too.
Okay, Bethany House, as usual, does beautiful covers for me. I'm so blessed. And this is the fourth book in my World War I connecting series. They all standalone novels, but they all have at least one character common in each book. And this story deals with Scotland in 1918 during World War I, and the women who worked in the munitions industry, who actually helped to make the worked around TNT Amatol to fill the shells, and they actually made the casings. They did all of this because, just to give you a little history, in 1915, there was what was called basically a shell scandal in Britain, because they were basically running out of ammunition against the enemy at the war. And because most of the men were over there fighting, women had at this point stepped into a lot of men's jobs. And so they started building munition factories like crazy in Britain, including Ireland, Scotland. And then they needed workers to basically, like I just said, machine the shells and make the propellants and make the, fill the shells with the TNT Amatol and get those, get the ammunition over to their boys in, France, so that they had something to fight with. And women did most of this, and it was dangerous work. They were around a lot of toxins, a lot of hazardous chemicals. And in the book, I share too that some of the girls who worked around the TNT and the disulfuric gases, I know I'm getting technical here, but just the vapors and being around it would actually bleach out their skin and their hair yellow. And so they were affectionately known as canary girls.
Really?
Yeah. And so, without these young ladies who were very brave and of course very adventurous and hardworking and patriot, the war may have gone a different way. So my hat's off to them. And I felt pretty passionate about writing their story, and just some of the hardships that they endured, but also some of the fun that they had, the camaraderie that they had. And of course, my books always have a little bit of intrigue, so there's a mystery in there as well. And I love writing history. So that book came out in November, and then I've got a book that will be out in December, and I don't have a cover yet. I have a cover, but I don't have a book yet. It's called In Love's Time. And the cover should be up online. And that's going to kind of wrap up that connecting series, World War I. And the book coming out in December is about the gentleman who is in each one of the other connecting books.
So I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen and show your website so we can see the cover.
Okay.
So there's In Love's Time, and it is a beautiful cover. And, I am so glad that you're writing these, because we don't hear, even in the Bible, we forget about sometimes, I'm guilty of it, and I'm a woman, we forget the women's story. Like, I think so often about Abigail in the Bible. I don't know why, but she just sticks out to me, how she intervened. And if she hadn't intervened, what could have happened?
Oh,
Abigail's
yes.
wife,
And she didn't have an
King,
easy life either. She
she
was,
did not. She did not.
she
And there's
put
so
crazy.
many stories like that. And I had no idea that the women's hair and skin turned yellow. I think that's fascinating. And actually, I have ancestors. My ancestry goes back to England and Scotland and Ireland. So
Oh,
anything over there is fascinating to me. And I noticed that on your website, you have some great information here. I'm just scrolling through here so people can see. Just go to katebreslin.com and I'll have it down in the description below. Oh, it's so awesome. Maybe
great.
it'll be a movie. That would be so
Oh,
great.
that's nice. Yeah. So
Yes.
I do love writing about, I love writing about women and empowering women, especially in history, because, women did had it rough. And I love, uh, I just love in World War I. I think that was the big thing that fascinated me about writing World War I, because my very first book, as you know, is World War II.
Mhm.
But World War I was really fascinated by the fact that women did band together and
Yes.
they got it done. And
They did. On both sides of the ocean.
Yes, and they really stepped up to the plate, and it was good for them too, because it actually helped put them on the fast track for the vote. I don't know that they would have gotten the vote in Britain or in America as quickly as they did if they hadn't proven that, hey, we can run the country, we can do this while this is going on. So
yes, the wars really did advance women's rights and the voices of women, for sure.
yeah.
And wars always do change the culture. They change
I know
them
it's
in
kind
so
of
many
sad,
ways.
isn't it? But it is true. It's talking about that. War is horrible, of course. But I think back to say World War I, and you had medicine and prosthetics and plastic surgery took leaps and bounds because of that war. So I mean, I think I always believe God takes the bad and makes it beautiful. Right. Man screws it up and then God makes something good out of it. And I really do believe in my heart that these are some of the blessings that we do get out of it. He shows us how to rise to the occasion, like I said, and do the extraordinary.
Well, just like Joseph in the Bible told his brothers what you meant for harm, God meant for my good. When Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, he actually ended up saving their lives.
Yes,
God writes amazing stories. He writes incredible stories, and we might be beaten down, but God will use that in some way. And there's always, if we give our lives to the Lord and if we let him order our steps, we might not understand it at the time, but I really, truly believe that he's always up to something good. And what the devil means for harm, he will turn to make, he'll just turn it around and give the devil a black eye with it. Okay, you're going to start this war. Fine. I'm going to, save lives in this way or whatever. I'm not saying that I claim to know God's mind or thought process, but he does seem to do that.
Well, he does. I mean, he gives us free will.
Yeah.
And so, he has to stand by and watch us sometimes stumble and fall, but he offers us opportunities to make things better. He offers us that beautiful that, I'm speaking out, at least, that's my belief anyway, that he does that. He doesn't cause the bad, but he just takes what is bad and makes it good. And if we're ready to hang on to it and go that way, it's great. If we're not, then, we're sunk. But he does he's always giving us that opportunity to be better, to do better.
Well, and there's an evil force out there that wants to destroy us. Which I believe happens to be, there are fallen angels and dark forces and the enemy, Satan, and I believe that's where the bad stuff comes from and gets planted in people's minds. And the Lord will give people, turn them over to a hard heart if they continually reject and reject and reject him. And that hard heart then becomes a tool in the hand of the enemy. The devil hates human beings. He hates them. That's why there are wars. He hates them. He can't stand them. He's jealous of us because we are the only creature God created in his image. We are the apple of God's eye. And the devil does not like that because he wants all that glory. You know, I just wish people knew how fiercely they're loved and how precious and prized they are by the creator of the universe, the most high God, the one true God, the God of all gods. But there are other forces at work. And isn't it wonderful that we can use words? I just think it's so amazing to be a writer and get to use words to tell his story because he created the world with words, you know?
Yeah. Well, look at, you know, Jesus was the best storyteller. I mean, he told us, you know, he told the early people, you know, he told everything in parables because he wanted them to understand. And story is powerful. And I feel privileged to be able to write story. And it's just, for me, it's so heartening when I get a letter from a reader or something, you know, that got it or that understood it, or there was something in particular they liked about, you know, the characters in the story. You know, that to me that's the prize. That's, you know, when they're moved,
definitely.
That's what it's really all about. And
well, I'm really fascinated with stories lately in a different way because I'm a special education teacher. And I have learned that if you can tie a story to a new concept for a child, especially kids that have a hard time learning, stories attach themselves to a different part of the brain. And children will retain and remember things better. So Jesus knew that already. He created the brain, right?
Yeah.
So he knows that story, because it involves our emotions when we hear a story and attaches to the parts of our brain where it's going to stick.
Yes.
That's why he told stories.
Yeah.
Because he wanted his word to be remembered. He wanted those truths to be remembered. And I want to giggle thinking about it because God is so clever, and we, you know, everything in his word down to the part of the Bible that says to renew your mind. Well, they've been proving through science that when we're grateful, it changes our mind. It actually changes the way our brain fires.
Oh, I believe that.
Changes the chemical structure of our brain, and the plastic. Our brains are very plastic. I'll go down rabbit trails, Kate. Sorry, but
I know you and I could just probably chat about this for, you know, a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, and just that story is just so important. So I want to know what it's like to be Kate Breslin and have all these books and to get to write to your heart's content. Tell me a little bit about how you were as a kid. How did you know you wanted to be a writer? How did that all come about?
Well, that actually writing novels did not come about for me until I was in my 30s. But as a kid, I wrote a lot of poetry. I found that writing, I could express myself. You know, I had a diary and I had, you know, but I would do poetry because I was able to express my feelings that way, and, you know, and my moods and that sort of thing. And I was always a Nancy Drew fan, or Trixie Belden.
Me too.
And, yeah. So I did write some short stories in school, just a couple of little short mysteries, you know, very short. And then I continued with my poetry, but then I was always a voracious reader. And I stumbled onto historical romance first, and I didn't care for history in school. I was out of boring dates and stuff, and I just really wasn't focused on it. But I started reading history through fiction, historical romance. And basically, you know, most of the authors were pretty accurate about the time in history. And somebody said, you know, history is about the facts, but writers write history on how someone felt, you know, how someone dealt with things in that time. And it goes back to what you're saying about story too. We're able to imprint on that. We're able to make that relevant to ourselves. And I just gobbled it up. I was reading all kinds of books, and I finally ran out of all my favorite author stories. And I thought, well, maybe I'll give this a try. And of course, it was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And just a lot of, over the years, and I was still working full time too, so I couldn't devote all my time to it. But it was always my dream to publish. And I was trying to publish in the general romance market for a long time. And about that time, I was kind of coming back to my faith too. And so as time went on, I started to kind of question what I was writing. And eventually my first book, which is For Such a Time, and it's basically a retelling of the book of Esther from the Bible, set in World War II. It took me a long time to do the research for that. But I finally gave over to that nudge from God, and I wrote that story. And as I wrote that story, I experienced my own spiritual journey, kind of coming back fully to the Lord. Stella, who is the main character in that book, and I were kind of on parallel paths. And the doors opened for me then. They really did. God worked in me. It was kind of like, finally, she's listening to me. And
that's awesome.
I've got Linda, my agent Linda, and
our agent
publisher. Yes, our agent. And Bethany House, which was a publisher I really was looking to publish with. And the rest is history. And it's been wonderful being able to write. It's a lot of hard work. My deadlines and just the marketing, how that goes. There is a lot of work behind the scenes. You've got to make it look easy, but there is a lot of work, but it's still rewarding. And I just love being able to do a lot of research and history, and then just create a story in that, and see what God's hand is for each story. And sometimes he'll call me to an idea to start off with, and other times as I'm writing, I have what I call those God moments where I'm lost in the story, and then the words are just coming. It's like,
that's the best.
What he wants me to say. Yes, and
those are the best times.
They really are. So yes, I'm living my dream. I really am.
That is so wonderful. And so what does a day look like when you're focused, when you're on a deadline and you have, I just want to know, everything, like,
okay, well,
what do you do to lay out a book? Do you outline it? What's your process? Are you a pantser? Are you a planner? I'm a plotter, a planner. I have to work an outline first, and I usually do quite a lengthy outline. It's not the one I give to my editor, but my outlines typically they can be quite long. They can be up to 50, 60, 70,000 words. Seriously. Really? Wow.
I write a big book. But then what I'll do is I will write within that synopsis, because sometimes I'll write entire scenes, and other times I'm just writing a paragraph, this happens, that happens. And then I create my story from that. But I like to start out with doing several weeks of research. And then once I get the research down, because that does help me to plot the book, gives me ideas. I'll start.
I get really bogged down in research. I could do research forever.
No, I do too. I have to turn the timer off.
Yeah.
But it does help me plot the book, and it gives me a better grip on the kind of characters I want to write about. And so I'll do an outline, and that will take me a while, like I said, to do that. And then when I'm ready to start actually fleshing it out and writing the book, I like to write 4 to 5 days a week. And I'm finding afternoons are better. I started out with mornings, but I seem to do really well about noon on, and then write till 4 or 5 at night.
Wow, that's cool.
4 or 5 hours. And then when I'm on deadline, I just write.
Yes.
I don't eat, I don't sleep, I just write. I sit in this chair, and I have been known to work 14-hour days.
Sure.
For many days in a row. And then you won't see me or hear from me.
It's like I'll be in my cave.
I disappear. Yes, because I have to finish the book up, and then I go through the editing process, and
that's such a blessing that you can do that.
Magic, and it comes out. So
that is awesome. That's an awesome blessing, and I'm so happy for you, because you are definitely a gifted author. Everyone, you're going to want to check her work out because it's riveting. And what do you do, like when, like one of the things that I do when or it's two things I thought of. So one of the purposes of my videos is to help people who want to do what you do, get some ideas on how, and when you're first starting out, you know, once in a while there's someone that just is just a natural at it, but a lot of us have to work at it. We have to come up with the things that work for us. So one of the things I learned to do was if I was writing, but I got to a spot that I wasn't sure what to do, I wouldn't stop. I would just go, and then something happens here, and then I would go on with my story. Do you ever do anything like that? Like just say, okay, I need to flesh this out more, but I'm going to move on right now, and send myself a little note, or how do you do that?
I'll do that in my outline. But
Okay,
remember,
so
my
that's
outline's
what you
quite
do.
long. Yeah, my outline's quite long.
Okay, so maybe that's what maybe what you're calling an outline, I'm calling a first draft.
Yeah, it just depends. You know, if I see a scene really clearly, I'll write it out while I'm doing the outline.
Doing the outline.
But then if if I need a transition after that, like meanwhile back at the ranch, you know, or whatever,
right.
I'll just say, okay, I've got to put this in later.
Okay.
Keep moving, because sometimes when the muse is with you, you need to keep going, and you're very smart to do what you're doing, because if you get yourself hung up, you know, you can lose the thread, you can lose the the spark. And so just to keep going, because you can always edit what's on the page, but you can't edit a blank page. So
that's right. And sometimes while you're doing the dishes or something, it'll come to you what you need to stick in that hole.
Yeah,
you know,
sometimes if I'm really if I have a difficult piece of the book that I'm working on, I'll just get up and go downstairs, and it comes to me. It's just I needed to get away from the computer, because sometimes I think your mind will just keep looping.
And it gets
change
locked.
gears. It's like, poof, there it is. So
it gets locked. Yeah. Your brain locks up. And another trick that I do, and of course I don't get to do it very often now because I'm working so hard full time, just trying to make ends meet. But is I always stop before I'm really done, so that when I come back to my manuscript, I can start writing right away. I don't want to stop where I'm like, I just don't know what else to do. I want to stop at a spot, like if it's, I've got to go to bed now, or got an appointment or whatever, got to go to work. Okay, I'm going to stop here, because that way I'll just start writing. And I didn't know anybody else that did that until I found out that that's what Hemingway would do.
Oh, okay.
Hemingway did that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to have to sit. I wanted to, be able to, once I was warmed up, and sometimes I'll warm up with like a blog post or something, or just my thoughts that I have to get out, or with a lesson plan or something, and then start in. But then I'm really excited to get back to it and get going, because I left off where I want to keep going. So
do you are you a planner or a pantser? I mean,
I'm kind of both. Like I think I do it like you do. Like I think what you're calling an outline, I think I'm calling a first draft, because I'll like line out what I want, definitely the beginning, middle, and ending. And then I'm still learning the craft. I'm not as far down the road as you are. So as far as fiction, like I've written a lot of nonfiction, or I've written a lot of historical biographies for kids and stuff, but not novels. I think novel writing is such an art form. It's difficult. I think it's much more difficult than writing nonfiction. I could write nonfiction in my sleep, but I think novel writing is an incredible art, and I admire anyone who does it well.
Well, thank you. I've never really written nonfiction per se. I mean, travel articles are pretty short. They're not a book, type.
Yeah,
thing.
But it's still kind of the same thing.
But for me, a lot of times it's just kind of instinctive, and I just kind of know.
Right, it's a gift.
Where
right?
this goes, and I know that there's many authors who are much more published than I am. I mean, they've got, 20, 30 books. And I imagine for them, it's it's kind of a built-in, I don't want to use the
formulaic.
It is kind of a formula, and they know.
But if it works, if the formula works, then that's okay, right?
Yes, exactly. And I have some friends, and they can just sit down and they can schedule everything out and just write the book. And for me, it's not quite that smooth. I do plan my outline, but then, it's still a discovery as I'm writing the books, I'm fleshing out the book. So, but I know those points, but to actually write down exactly what they are, I don't know that I can do that.
Right. And I think, I don't know. I just think like you said, I really think it's a gift, especially like subplots and all of that. I have I have read so many books on the craft, so many, and I have studied so many formulas, and I have tried so much software. Bottom line is, you either have the gift to tell a story or you don't. You can, because I suppose AI could write a book, like if artificial intelligence, I'm sure they probably will eventually be putting out books.
I don't look forward to that day.
No, me neither. But I still think, I think there's a spark or something there that some people have. They just have it. And even if they're not really good literature writers, I'm thinking about people like John Grisham or Dan Brown, but they know how to tell a story. They might not be the greatest artist as far as, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but literary genius, but they can tell a story, right? And
storytelling. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. You have like literary works, which are more, seem to be more internal, something that's literary is very internal. At least, everybody's still trying to discover what does literary mean, but I think that's a lot of what it is. It's a very, you're looking at total character driven versus, story driven, plot driven. Then you've got your storytelling. And I know people that don't write, that are just great storytellers, they're great joke tellers.
Yes.
And
Eddie has an uncle who can tell stories like crazy.
Yeah.
He's so good at it.
In caveman days, early days,
right.
Around
well, that's where it started, right? It started with
Bards did
art.
That for and
the cave walls, all the art on the cave walls. That's where it got started, right?
Yeah,
people, sure. we have a need to tell our story, to tell stories.
We do. It's how they remembered their history.
And that's how we work out stuff, I think. I think that's how we work out our fears, our hopes, our dreams. That's why I like being a writer, because I get to go somewhere that I don't normally get to go. And I actually find it cathartic in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Which I did not even really realize how cathartic. It took me back a couple of weeks ago. I was doing a blog post and I was like, man, I feel good, after I'd gotten done with it, because it'd been a while since I'd gotten to do anything like that. And it's like, oh, I forgot how good that felt, that just feels really good to just write and put those words together. And it's just fun. It's just so much fun.
I get asked sometimes, what's your favorite book? And I always say it's the one I'm working on, because, as I'm writing it, I'm kind of living it, I'm living with those characters. I'm seeing it all in my head. And it's kind of like when you go and you watch a movie, right? And you get absorbed in the movie. Well, as a writer, you get absorbed in the book, and you hope that your readers will also. And I know as a reader, I have learned so much from other authors. I've loved being able to relate to the stories that I've read, or the voice that I've read. It's so some author out there, maybe on the other side of the world, and me have some similar likes. We have some similar worldviews, maybe. We have, you know what I mean? We look at
Right.
life similarly in some ways through story. And I
Right.
think that is a beautiful thing. Story brings us all together
It
in
does.
that sense. And
It
and
does.
for me, when and you know, and being a writer, you know, it's very solitary, and I wouldn't say I'm actually introverted, but you know, it depending on where I am, I can be kind of shy. But it's nice when somebody gets it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which means this, I get this, or you know, they'll explain and say, yes, okay, you know, I was able to share my thoughts, and they came
Yes.
through to someone. So that's a connection.
Yes.
But, my
Well, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say the message. I just feel so blessed that I'm able to write and hopefully put across God's message, you know, a message that God has in each book. And most of my books are about redemption in one way or the other. You know, someone goes through that journey to find redemption for something. And, you know, I could have gone the other way, but God had other plans for me. You know, I could have gone in a way that I wouldn't have been able to share those things. And for me, it's so rewarding when I hear from a young person, like a young adult who's read my books and they tell me the things that they liked about the book. Whether it's, you know, that they liked the hero and the heroine, and the way, you know, the way that they got to know each other, and you know, just very godly things, and how I put God into the book. You know, sometimes it's you know, their remarks are kind of basic, but it really
Sure. Yeah.
I just feel like that's something that, you know, I'm very blessed with, to be able to experience that, and you know, to keep a connection with them. I have some that I've stayed in touch with for years, since my first book came out.
You know, I just went through a major surgery in December. I had an 18-pound cyst removed from my ovaries, and came out just fine. I'm perfectly healthy. I lost 36 pounds. And I don't advise growing a cyst that big in your body to have it removed. But I remember going through that and thinking, well, maybe it's my time, you know, maybe it's because we didn't know yet, you know, what exactly it was going to turn out to be. And I wish I could remember where the scripture is, and I'll put it in the notes below. But the scripture that's where the Lord's telling the king that prayed that he wouldn't die, he says, you will not die, you will live and declare the works of the Lord. And I knew that was the reason that I was still alive. And I believe that we're all alive in this time. We were born for this time for a reason. And I think we're living in the most unique time in all the history of the earth. And we are here to declare the works of the Lord. And writing is such a glorious way to get to do that to so many more people than we would ever get to ever speak to. You know, if we can get a book out there and it can reach thousands of more people than we could ever reach just standing on a street corner. I think it's just remarkable, the way technology and the way the Lord can spread his message. But that is our purpose, is to declare the works of the Lord. Yes. And I'm so glad that I get to talk to writers and dreamers and encourage young writers. You know, I just encourage them to, man, it's a great time to be a writer right now. I mean, you can get published immediately just by clicking publish on your computer. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. I was thinking today as I was backing out of my parking lot. I don't know why. I was thinking about how I could have never imagined as a young girl seeing in what I just thought was pretty dandy with my electric typewriter on a TV tray in my grandma's house, because that was my happy place was at my grandma's house, where I'd get to spend a whole week with her and be the only child for a week. But my favorite thing to do was to hole up in a bedroom and just write for hours with that little typewriter, or go out into the pasture where the cows were and sit in a tree and write poems. I was like you, I wrote poems and things when I was young.
Yeah.
But look at, I just think it's amazing. You know, do we get to make videos now? We get to talk to each other across the country. I remember in first grade, do you remember in first grade learning about how in the future you will have telephones that talk to each other? Do you remember studying that at all in school?
No, but I remember I went to Epcot Center once when I was actually I was a teenager, and they had the city of the future.
Oh,
And you would go through on this kind of a electrical ramp would take you up through all their different scenes. And I remember this one about it was a room with some kids, these were all like mannequins, but little kids playing on the floor with blocks. And this woman was looking at this giant screen, and she had like a podium in front of her, and she was ordering dishes off of this machine. And I remember everybody was kind of, oh my goodness. And that's what we do today. I mean, you order online. This was,
yeah.
and
you even do that at a kiosk at the fast food places now.
Yes.
I don't know if they do it out there where you are, but over here, everything's automated. Everything is a machine. You don't speak to anybody.
That's the downside of that. I don't want to lose that human connection. And I'm afraid that, everything has good things and bad things about it.
Yes,
and I think
if
you can embrace the good things, but don't get to where we're all, and of course COVID hasn't helped at all, but get to where we're all totally isolated from each other, because we are relational. God is relational, and we need to keep that connection, that human.
Well, and the devil doesn't want us to be. And I think that's where it's going, like with this metaverse. And so Christians have got to keep up their game. They've got to know about this stuff so they can be an influence. They need to be an influence on the technocracy. I told my students at school, I said, I really think your kids are going to go to school in virtual reality. I really do. I really think that's
possibly,
because teachers just can't, you can't find people to teach anymore, because it's really rough. It's just so hard. And I just don't see it being sustainable. And I just think that's where everything is going. And we as Christians need to be aware and keep up with what's going on, not to be a part of it, but to be not to be a part of the bad part, but to be a positive light and influence in it,
Absolutely agree.
So that's exactly why we need to write books too. And I think that's why we need Christian fiction, is so that it can be a light. We need light in this darkness. It's a very dark place, this world. And Jesus knew it, and he wanted us to be light. Yeah. So tell me what you're working on right now.
Well, I am working on new proposals, and looks like I'm going to go back into World War II now for a while, since I've finished up this connecting series of mine with the December book, In Lost Time. And I enjoy writing European history still. So I will most likely, it will involve British characters like all my other books. And
now, are you Irish or British or Scottish or Welsh?
Scots and Irish. Mm-hmm. And I've also got French from my mother's side of me, but I've got, you can see my weapons on the back wall there. I have, I'll show you.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, I have quite a few weapons. We go to the Highland Games every year. And
do you really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, we haven't been in a while. We did go last year, but my husband will usually buy me a sword or a hatchet or a mace or something. I
always wanted to be one of the dancers. I always thought the dancers.
Oh yeah, cool. The Scottish dancers, they're really, Irish dancers are good too. Mm-hmm. If you've seen the river dance.
Yeah, Irish pubs are a real big deal around here. I live in the Tampa area, in Orlando, and they have a lot of Irish. Oh, did you really?
Yes, I did. Yes, I'm
Yeah,
a
you
Florida
should be.
girl. I was born in,
Oh, you were?
yes.
Oh my
In
goodness.
fact,
Well,
all of our kids, all the kids in
it
my
is
family
rough here now, right now. I'm telling you what, it is.
were.
Wow. It's just not anything. I don't even know why I'm here. It's like, God, why am I here? But yeah, and I teach in inner city Tampa. So
Mm.
it's really interesting. It's different than anything that I was ever around before.
Oh,
But then there's lots of Irish pubs around here.
well, I haven't been to Tampa in a long time. I lived there when I was basically a baby.
Oh, okay.
One of my brothers was born there. But yeah, I'm over on my family still lives over on the East Coast of Florida, Central
do?
East Coast. Yeah. Yeah. So in fact, I'm probably going to be coming down there in September
Oh, really?
for a little visit. Yes. See my
Ooh.
mom, and
Yeah.
one of my brothers lives there. We're kind of split up. I have half my family in the Pacific Northwest and the other half's in Florida. Can't get much farther away from each other, but that's just how it
Wow.
worked
Well,
out.
that's how it
So,
is. It's just
yeah.
how it is now,
Mhm.
You have to go where God puts you.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So,
So,
okay. So you're going back to World War II. Now you've taken some trips to Europe, correct? For research? Yeah. Are you going
yes,
back?
I'd love to. I would love to go to the United Kingdom, would be great. Scotland, Britain, Ireland, if I can. I've been very, very fortunate. My mom was a very intrepid traveler. She still
Oh,
is.
she
Actually.
was? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've been to several countries in Europe, and I've been to
Wow.
Japan, and I've been to
Wow.
and I took her to Barcelona back in 2017 when I was writing Far Side of the Sea.
Mhm.
And that was the book before this one. And I actually I took the story to Barcelona as well. So it was fun to write about where I had just been.
Yeah,
And
I'm
just
seeing.
some of the things that I saw there. It was beautiful. I just absolutely loved Barcelona. It was gorgeous. And it was somewhere she'd been wanting to go for several years. So I took her and we went to the Sagrada Familia, which is a beautiful cathedral. I think is finally finished.
Really?
But it was started by Antoni Gaudi, who was an architect who basically designed most of Barcelona. And I ate my way through Barcelona eating tapas and
What's that?
picadas.
I don't even know
Tapas
what
are
that
the little
is.
plates of food that you can get in restaurants where they give you several different plates of food and you can share them with everyone. It's like sort of like an appetizer, but that's what they'll eat. They'll order 3 or 4 or 5 different tapas and then share them at the table.
That
And
sounds like fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah, European plates are so much smaller. I
yeah,
know when I went to Ukraine, like the plates were this big.
Oh,
And our American plates are like this. And
Yeah.
in Europe, their plates are like this. And we wonder why we're like waddling around here in the United States.
yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you want to share that we haven't gone over yet or say?
Well, basically just that I hope you will all take a peek at As Dawn Breaks. It's available in every format. It's available at the library. It's available in ebook, audiobook, paperback, of course. And if anyone lives in the Washington area in Port Orchard, I will be there Saturday signing books.
This Saturday?
Yes, this Saturday from
Oh,
1:30 to 3:30. And all they need to do is go to katebreslin.com, the events page. If they want more details, I would love to meet some people and find out if they had watched this video that we're doing. And I'm very excited to start, sharing more news about the next book in Love's Time. And you can sign up for my newsletter on my website. It comes out quarterly right now. So I'll have one coming out actually this coming month or June. And I'll be sharing more about my characters in that book, which are Marcus and Claire. And I always do a little bit of history, and I include a recipe that I either use in the book, or it's something, you know, of that nature. Like I've been posting some Scottish recipes, and I always make them first, try them out, which is fun because I'm not really a foodie, but I like to try. That's my chance to try something new. So that's
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm not a great cook because I learned how to cook from my grandma who went through the Depression.
Mhm.
So everything I know how to cook is from, you know, how to fill your belly and
Yeah.
not starve. So I don't know very much about delicacy and things like that, but
Well,
I
basically,
love
when you're writing about World War I, it was a lot of rationing.
that is
So
true. That
I
is true.
make a World War I. In fact, if you I make a World War I cake. I got the recipe because had no eggs. It doesn't use eggs. It does use some sugar. So I learned how they did it. It was actually quite tasty because, you know, they were rationing food back then. And so I also made bannocks, you know, Scottish bannocks, the oat bread. I tried that.
I've heard that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty simple fare, but
The only thing I don't want to try is haggis.
No, I don't do, no.
I don't want to try
That's
that.
one thing I don't do. I like
Or
meat
blood
pies
pudding.
and all that, but I'm not a haggis fan, no.
Or blood pudding. That doesn't sound tasty either. But I suppose that's something you have to be raised on, you know, like if you've been raised on it,
sure,
you probably don't even think about it. But to me, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know.
yeah, some things that, yeah.
But
and
I was
there's
raised on
probably-
liver and I don't like liver either. So
yeah.
oh, Kate, thank you so much for joining us here on the Writing Cafe.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and it was great talking to you again, Karla.
Yeah, and I hope that when your next book comes out that we can do another get together again. This has been fun.
Would love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.